kids, welcome to Stylus Rumble Drawing Time thing. So as I've been saying in the last couple of videos, I want to get a little bit more into drawing this year. So I'm going to be doing more drawing videos and talking about cartooning specifically, kind of leaning more towards that way. My favorite thing to draw is characters, character portraits. I love to draw trees and stuff too, organic stuff. So I'm going to heavily lean on organic type drawing. You won't see many robots from me. I do think perspective is super important and super valuable, so never neglect your perspective studies, but I don't know how many really super technical ones we'll get into. We'll see. I have no plan. But today, I just want to talk about skulls. Skull drawing. A lot of cartoonists, especially if they do really iconic style stuff, they don't get into the skull too much, or they don't really dive deep into anatomy studies, but I can't describe how valuable it is to understand the structure that's underneath the thing that you're drawing. So of course, if you've got a cartoon where your stuff is really iconic, and you just got the little button nose, it's not a huge deal if you know where the skull is under something like this. But if you're getting into something a little bit more Disney-esque, then knowing the underlying structure is going to help you a ton for figuring out where all this stuff belongs, making sure your characters' expressions make sense, making sure your characters don't have squish face. A lot of people do squish face because they aren't looking at the stuff that lives underneath inside that skull. So, I mean, cartooning has an exponential number of places that you can get to. So by learning this stuff, the little bit more advanced stuff, you have the options of doing this and this. But if you just do this, you'll never learn how to do this. So the one thing I'm going to recommend you go find, let me just shrink these guys down. Check out some proportions. Do some proportion studies. And do some perspective studies of the skull. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about proportions in this video because there's so many resources where you could go find that, and I don't think a video is the best place to do it. I think something that's I think more of an illustration or a blog type thing is going to be a little bit more convenient because you're not waiting for the proportions to come up. But I will talk about those two schools of thought on the proportions of the head, which are super important. So I'm just going to do some shoddy little head here. This box here, by going from the top to the bottom and drawing an X, you're going to find the halfway point of your box. Keeping your lines fine or making your box a little wider will make things a little bit more clear. So here I'm just holding shift, boop, boop, and making sure go from corner to corner, and you're going to get your halfway. See, this one's not very accurate. Let's get rid of that one. Just garbage it. There we go. So there's two schools. There's the halves and the thirds. The half's the one I prefer. You put your eyes on your half, then half of that again. I could use my box here to find the perfect half. That's where your nose lives, and then about half again. You get the idea. Beginner artists always leave out the top of the head. You'll see tons of draw heads like this, where there's nothing up here, and then a whole lot of crap down here. So definitely get in there and figure out where that skull lives up there. Lots of brain in a human head. The thirds method, beep, boop. I prefer halves because it incorporates from the top of the head. And when I say top of the head, let me just draw a little merp. So here's the halfway. This is the top of the head. Yeah, it's way back here. So look at skulls. Top there, way back there is the top of the head. There's all this roundy bit up here. And depending on the character, some people have much rounder fronts of their head. That's like a crazy amount. Some little children have rounder fronts on their head. And some people have heads that come right down and incorporate their nose. But you want to look at lots of different skulls and the way that they're formed, because all that'll inform your drawing when you're doing characters. You're designing your own characters. But the thirds method, it's from the hairline to the chin. So if I were to draw my character like this, boop-a-doop, here's my hairline I can see from my other guy. You'd break this into thirds, and thirds are annoying. There's no convenient, like you just eyeball it or measure it. So then your eyes, I know from this one that my eyes should fall around here. Boop, boop. So that'd be 1/3 from the hairline to the eyes, And then another third down here would give you your nose. So you can see that things are going to fall about the same distance on the skull. Check out this. I'll just do the thing where we cheat the eye. Perfect. Perfect art. Check mark for you. 100%. So the features are going to fall about the same place, but both methods work. I just prefer the halves because there's an easy way to do halves. There's no easy way to do thirds that I know of. Maybe you've got a secret way of drawing this stuff in and making it work. But pick a school, halves or thirds, and go explore it. So let me just, for argument's sake, I'll draw a box. Say we need to draw our head this way. I'm not really thinking about proportions while I draw this, am I? Don't forget your proportions of your head. So now if I have a perfectly drawn rectangular prism, I can cross across here and find out my half. It's not a very well drawn box. All right, so to find the halfway point from corner to corner, this is where the eyes will sit. Halfway point here. This is where the nose will sit. And then the halfway point there. That's where the mouth will sit. So that's why I like the halves version. And then you can carve out the pieces of your box here. And give yourself a halfway reasonable skull, especially if you take your time and don't do a shoddy job. Go forth, find your favorite anatomist, be it Hale, or I really like Bridgeman. He's one of my favorites. Loomis is super popular. Vilpu is really popular amongst the animation community. He does more dynamic style anatomy, but just pick one and then do proportion studies and perspective studies. So good. Because once you have that, you can break the skull up into pieces and you can start using the landmarks of the skull to draw your characters, either when you're designing your characters in the beginning or when you're trying to draw on the features or figure out where things should live. There's tons of usefulness to this little skull guy. And of course, this is far from anatomically correct, but cartooning doesn't need to be correct, but it does need to have some foundation in reality. All right, so here we have our sphere eye that lives inside of our eye socket. And we can throw some eyelids on top of that. We can throw our eyebrows up on top of our eye socket. And we know where that's supposed to be. If you look at a lot of the Disney art for the princesses, they have these massive eyes and then their eyebrows follow. It's just like the old bunnies and stuff. This is all eye socket. It's not random, these stuff that's drawn like this. It's the eye socket. I don't know what this is, chipmunk. Kind of hideous. Ooh, ooh. But this stuff, this around the eye bit, that's all eye socket. It has a foundation, reality. And then the eyebrows of these characters follow that. So if the eyebrow comes up, it follows the eye socket. And if the eyebrow comes down, it follows the eye socket. So it follows that path. It's like a little railway path that you can make sure that your eyebrows are following along. And then if you're tilting your head or doing anything like that, like this guy, then you know where your eyebrows have to aim for, just because you know where your eye sockets are. If that makes sense. I'm just rambling. Hopefully you can find some like little nuggets of information in this ramble. So again, this part down here, when you're looking at eye bags, that's the bottom of your skull. I have pictures of skulls on the internet. So I just Googled human skull, and here's where your eye bags are gonna live. What am I clicking? Okay, so here, that's where your eye bag, this fold down here, it's not arbitrary. It all, let's say old man. Looking at old people is the best way to really see how the skull affects the face. Super good. So this here, that's not an arbitrary position or placement. And this here is not. You can see, if you're familiar with a skull, you can see where all those wrinkles and stuff live. So if you are drawing older characters and you know where all this stuff is, you're going to be able to place it much better. This crease here, there's some muscles that go around your mouth, and getting into the musculature is really going to help you as well. But on some people's skulls, here you go, you can see where that cheekbone is here. And so when you're pulling stuff in, this fold is the cheekbone, a little bit of fat, if you have any. I got a little bit too much after Christmas. But it folds in there. The skin folds between that bone because that's the way the muscles kind of dig in there. And there you go. You can really see his eye sockets. See how his skin is like almost folded up in under the eye socket there. And then down here, all these creases are coming along the bone and then folding out, fanning out over the cheek here. The cheekbone, that's where it lives, is inside this little bit here. And then the chin, people have such good chins. I think we're like either the only animal that has a chin or one of two animals that has a chin. But this little protrudy bit here, you get like a Ron Perlman chin. This is one, like you can see he's got a real, for serious chin bone under there. Who's this guy? He's got a pretty nice looking chin as well. Oh, here's a nice portrait. If you look into caricature, you can really see how they understand the structure underneath there. You can see he's got like the brow bone there featured. The eye bags going in along the eye socket. He's got that chin under there. You can see the lighting and shadow on these cheekbones. Real good portrait artists, something I aspire to be in my grown-up life, are really good at this. He's got a little bit more fat on his face, so it can be harder to see, but see, you can find the brow bones if you're doing strange angles of faces. You can follow along his brow bones to see how that skull is lining up. Get all that stuff in. And if you're looking at something like the nose, like if you just kind of hide that away in your brain, think about how the skull underneath is working, you're going to be able to put those extras on top very easily. Eyebrows, nose, lips are even a little bit arbitrary, so they can move. All this stuff can move, the fat on your face can move, but your skull can't. Well, except your jaw. But even your top teeth don't move. This is something I talk about when people are doing expressions. So here, if you've got a character like this, and he's real happy, let's give him a little whoop, little nose. So if I needed to do another expression of this character, say I need him to be sad, his top teeth don't move at all. So we can leave those in there. We can move this part of his face around. Just bring that down around the teeth. And now he's feeling a bit sad already. Then we can take these eyebrows and remember that these live on those little railway strips. And you can bring this part down, but keep this lined up there on our strip. And if you want to put the cheeks and stuff in here, think about, here's his, because the brow bone here comes a little bit higher than this part of your nose and comes out like that. So you're not doing crazy up real high like this kind of stuff. And then as this pushes up, you're going to get that fold here and the fat coming up over the top. So that's where this line comes from. When you're drawing an expression of a character and their eyes do this, it's the fat of your cheek pushing up against your eye. So you know where this stuff should go. And even if you're drawing it much more simply, it's going to look correct because you're bringing it from the right place to the right place. And here, if we want to have our downward stuff, it's coming from the right place, going to the right place. Put a nice big chin on here. Keeping your skull supported and correct is also going to help you maintain the model of the character as it goes along, because like I said, while the fat of your face moves around, your eyes and your eyebrows and your mouth, all this stuff moves around, your skull is fixed. So you can't change the distance of your cheekbones no matter what you do to your face. You can't change the shape of the bridge of your nose, or this part here, like the eye sockets and the nose here. That's something that's going to be permanent, but you can like flare your nostrils or stretch your nose out a little bit. This part down here is a little bit more flexibility. So knowing where those anchor points are, things that are not negotiable on your face, is going to really help you keep your character looking solid when you're doing different poses. And also, once you know the pieces of the skull, you can change their size. Here we've got a little brain case, or a big brain case. You can put some real Neanderthal looking brow bones on here. And we're starting to get something that looks a little bit dumber. a little bit tougher. You're not going to fight a guy who has like a big pile of skull there. You can't. They're like fighting eyebrows. That's the way I think of them. And you can have this big brain case with a smaller jaw, and you're going to get a little kid. Children have much smaller jaws because they have little baby teeth. A lot of the distance in this part of your mouth is your teeth. So my teeth are kind of like normal, medium-sized teeth. So I haven't got a big, but if people with big teeth have a much bigger distance here, and children have little teeth, so they've got littler jaws. And old people, when their teeth fall out, their jaws get small again. Where'd my old people go? Let's see if I can find a guy with no teeth. This guy's got no teeth. See how small his jaw looks? Let's just type in no teeth. There we go. This guy can just fold his jaw so small because he's got no teeth. This guy here as well. You can only collapse your jaw that much if there's no teeth in the way. So if you want someone who's really old or really young, then you're going to want to shrink that jaw down. So good. See that chin bone here? And here's the cheekbone and those beautiful brow bones and that beautiful nose bridge. I'm going to do more episodes on the face just because I love it so much. I'm going to talk a bit more about noses and eyes and stuff as we go along, but just the skull is so important, and looking at elderly or very thin people are going to help you be able to see the skull in there and be able to pick out those landmarks so much easier than somebody who's really youthful. Oh, it's so much fun. So if we're thinking about character design, so if you're not following the character design references folder from the character design challenge, please go do that. It's brilliant. So they have a whole folder dedicated to the head. Look, oh, here's some nice skulls in rotation. They have a whole page dedicated to skulls and all the different... All right, so here we have big skull, little jaw. And even though there's not a ton of anatomy in here, you can still see the proportions of these pieces and how they work. A lot of characters, especially beautiful characters, have very proportional skulls. If you give them a bit more of a bigger jaw, they start looking a little bit more masculine. If you're not following this board, like, look at all these amazing, beautiful art. Okay, so here we have a nice Disney skull. He has a small skull case here and a big jaw, but he doesn't have the big eyebrows. He doesn't have those kind of fighting eyes, like I said, so he still looks really nice, kind looking. Here we've got a big head and a smaller jaw, because he's a bit of a smart guy. I love Big Hero 6 designs. I think they're so good. Very proportional, because, of course, women can only be beautiful in cartoons. There's, like, a law. She's got a big skull and a small jaw. Oh, here we've got a big skull and a big, like, bulbous sort of a jaw here. Every single character you look at, you start finding the skulls underneath here. And there's lots of people who've drawn skulls, like Mickey Mouse's skull. There's lots of those resources. So here we're looking at Strong Guys. Oop, he's got a small skull, small, like, brain case, and a big jaw. That's going to be really common for strong-looking guys. Here, same thing. Oh, and here... find him. This guy's fantastic. See how they've broken the pieces and kind of shifted them around? That's another thing you can really get away with. And you can start putting fat on top of it. Oh, it's so exciting, you guys. Here we've got a nice proportional. He's got a bit of a smaller head and a longer jaw here. You can see this, I mean, this is a cartoon, obviously, but all this shading is based on the skull shape. Here, you can see the skull shape in all of this tone work. So knowing what's in there, oh, and if you're doing 3D, you need to have that skull in there. See, you get the nice cheekbone here, those big fighter's brows. He's got a nice set of those. Real structure in there. Okay, so that's just me kind of ranting. Faces. Oh, I love faces. There's a nice one. Look at all the structure in that. Don't let being a cartoonist kind of dissuade you from getting real in deep. There's so much structure in here in the face. And you can break it, obviously. Breaking the structure is totally fine and wanted. You can bend it out of shape. Here's one I've done recently about Netflix. And, you know, he's got a small brain case there. And he's got a long jaw. But this jaw is clearly not structurally sound. Like, this thing is well broken. If these teeth continued on, they'd come back here. So the whole front part of his jaw has been, like, set backwards into his face. His chin has been snapped. His neck is just a train wreck. It's fine. Because with cartoon you can get away with it. But if you don't know about any of this stuff, if you don't know that these brows exist or that the different pieces of the head exist, then how can you how can you play with them if you don't know they're there? A lot of cartooning is learning what stuff to take out. So if you were to clean this guy up, I just reduce him down by a whole lot and then pick out the stuff that's essential. So if you just saw that, you might not necessarily think about all the anatomy that goes in behind it. So when you see someone drawing something like this, because a lot of the times now I don't draw the structural stuff as much, I can start with a fairly light version and just build this stuff up. But the only reason I can do this is because I've drawn that skull so many times from so many angles. I know where all the parts are, and I've just kind of ground them into the subconscious part of my brain. So when you see someone drawing like this, it's just that these things, the structural things, and drawing all the bits and stuff around it has been kind of knocked down to the subconscious level. But I'm seeing that skull in there. I'm seeing lines in my head running from this cheekbone to this cheekbone, or I'm seeing lines in my head running along here. It's just a matter of repetition. So get in there, do your skull drawing. Bloop. Do proportion studies, do perspective studies of skulls, of every type of skull you can. And this translates directly into drawing animals. Anything you want to draw that's a creature that has a skull, you start looking at the way that skull exists underneath like this. I've been drawing some dinosaur skulls. So here you have some sort of a dinosaur skull, very clearly cartoonified. You're going to be able to draw your little cute triceratops baby, because you know where all this stuff lives. You're not guessing. Oh, he's so adorable. But it's all skulls. Skulls, draw them. Ah! All right. So I don't know if that was helpful. Might just be a rant about skulls that makes no sense. You may have run off already, but thanks for stopping by. It's good stamina if you've stuck it out this far. Okay, I'm almost done my line art for my character, my fairy character. So I've got this character well underway. She is rotated. I haven't done her hair yet, which I'm already getting some of the details in there. But the torso and stuff is all in getting rotated, and I'm cleaning it up, getting all my lines in there because I'm doing two-tone, like the tonal line. And as soon as she's done, I'm going to start rigging her, and I'm going to record the whole process, no matter how long it takes, and I'll be posting that soon. So stay tuned. I know some of you out there are super excited about rigging. For those of you who are less excited about rigging, there's going to be more drawing coming up. Let me know if there's anything in specific you'd like to see. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!